It really is. I agree. I've had a couple of other podcasts that weren't video podcasts just go haywire right off the cuff and have to reschedule, and um, it was bad.
Good evening and welcome to HORRORific Chats. In this segment we talk to independent creators to discuss their aspirations and what attracted them to the horror genre. Tonight we're joined by author AJ Brown. Hi Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about you, Colin?
Not too bad. We were getting started in the conversation. I was like, oh, we're live, right? We better focus, or else we're nearly just about to jump onto the YouTube's midstream here. So that's a good start. We're getting ready to go.
Absolutely.
No, I like these things. It's good. This is the first time we've met and we've had a few emails and spoken to each other. But it's always good to meet new people, and I think the first few minutes you kind of establish whether we're going to have a decent conversation or not, and so far looking pretty positive.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I when this opportunity came up, I was like, yes, let's do this, because I'd watched a couple of your podcasts and I was like, I thought it'd be really fun just to hang out and talk for a while.
Thanks very much. Glad you enjoyed it. And the whole point of this is that get independent creators, authors in particular. I think we've lost storytelling. That's my whole personal take on this. We've kind of lost the art of storytelling. Everything has become like a fast food chain. I've used that analogy. Can't remember. I picked it up in something else, but essentially, entertainment has become fast food chain. It's just the same stuff, regurgitated. There's no skill. There's no flair. And everyone that comes in is basically a line cook. There's nothing else required. Flip that burger, crack on to the next one, repeat the fade, and it's quite sad.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, it's not the readers that's causing that. It's the writers doing it. It's our the media saying, do this, do this, do this, and nobody really willing to deviate because they're afraid they're not going to sell books.
Which is strange, because you're actually doing yourself out. Because if you just become the smaller number and you haven't got the right connections, well, you're not going to sell books anyway, because they've already got their golden people, at the tip, up at the top floor. That's who they're going to promote. They're not going to promote you for conforming, so why waste time?
Right, and and you're hurting yourself. You're really hurting yourself, because I'm a huge Stephen King fan, and one of the things that drew me to him was his conversational tone of writing. And so when I started writing, I wanted that same conversation feel, so that like you and I are talking now, when you read one of my books, it's like you and I are still talking.
Yeah, the thing about Stephen King as well, he really goes in depth with the characters, so he'll spend time setting up the scene. We've talked a few things. We've done quite a few Stephen King adaptations and talked about them, good and bad. Bad points. Stephen King, as I say, just needs to get off Twitter though. He needs to stop getting involved in the nonsense and shouting at people, because he's kind of letting himself down a bit. And at his age, he should really just relax a bit. He's getting himself very wound up.
He has, and he also, because he and Trump sparred quite a bit, and he's also he's written a lot of that in some of his books, and it's like that's your personal thing that you're writing your politics into your books, and I don't really care when he does that. I mean, I understand it's his platform, but I don't really care that when he does that particular thing. I mean, I want to read your books, your stories. I want to hear your politics, and he's a fabulous individual, knowledgeable writer, amazing storyteller. Let's stick to that.
But I think people feel obliged. But once again, it's, oh, I must pick a side, I must get involved in this, and it must permeate everything. And that's why I'm saying that when you're too close to that bubble, you think that's the way everybody thinks, and you don't realize that people have different opinions, and which everyone's entitled to. There's people I talk to I don't agree with. You don't have to agree in every single lockstep, minutiae detail of anything. But if you're trying to reach a wide audience, then you need to kind of leave that stuff out.
Right.
Or else you just become very niche and you're only looking to appeal to one audience, which is perfectly fine as well. Do your thing. My whole thing is, I don't like people getting quashed because you don't agree with them or they're not going along, or what's worse now is because some corporate entity, some boardroom in a corporate tells you to do something and you're like, what? Don't buy from anybody else except from us. And if you don't buy from us, you're a horrible person. It's no longer about we make the best products or provide the best services. We're virtuous and right, and usually somebody's trying to say how good they are is usually the opposite.
Yeah, and not only that, sometimes when you make statements and the corporate or your sponsors get wind of these statements, you have to walk those statements back. So at that point, you're no longer standing by what you said, and to me, that's worse.
Oh yeah,
I mean, oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to, if you're going to say it, stand by it, own it. Don't let corporate or sponsors or whatever change how you feel about what you stated.
No, I think that's why the worst thing ever is any form of politics getting into art. Politics stays in the dusty boardrooms with boring individuals. The problem is, with social media, everyone's getting the dopamine rush of instant feedback. Oh, people like me. Oh, I'm getting clicks and likes. We were actually talking about this. We were reviewing a film last week. Did it last Sunday. My time is just, because we're doing another one tomorrow, and it just feels like yesterday. Time is just racing. But we were talking about a film last week, and it was about social media and how it literally is emptying people from the inside out. It's like emptying people's souls and spirit and creative energy, and just in this sort of vacuous void. It's a horror story in itself. And
social media is horrible. It's a plus for it. It helps you get your word, get your work out there. It helps you with, if you're an artist, it helps you get images and music and books in front of people. But it's such a toxic wasteland. All it takes is one person to say the wrong thing at the wrong time, and people are ripping you.
Yeah,
and
it's like back to medieval days where the mob's looking for the witch.
Yes,
I mean? It really is
absolutely.
back to medieval times. There's a book I meant to pick up. I've actually got it on my list. But it talks about how communication changes throughout humankind's history has always led to this sort of thing. So the invention of the printing press, for example, almost led to wars. Then it was the radio did the same thing. Then television did the same thing. And then the internet, when it first came out, did the same thing. Now we're in the social media age. And once again, it ramps up. I don't know, it's something about human behaviour. When we believe, that we're unfiltered and there's no consequences, it releases the worst in us.
Yes.
And which is always, that's another reason why I love the horror genre, because that's something that always gets explored.
Yes. And the good thing about the horror genre is you can pretty much take anything and go through the psychological aspects of it, go through the darker aspects of it. And really, honestly, I find some of the best, most enlightening stories to be horror stories, because they're not afraid. The people who write really good horror stories, actual stories, not just writing words just to write words, but real good stories where they get into the development of their characters and their scenery and their storyline. And sometimes they'll throw in these little tidbits and you're like, damn, that was good. And they really explore the parts that a lot of other writers and a lot of other artists won't explore because they're afraid to.
Yeah, and talking about horror, what would you consider your genre or your brand of horror to be? You've mentioned about taking the inspiration from Stephen King as conversational tool, but What would you how would you describe your brand of horror, and what sort of area you focus on?
Well, a lot of my horror is quiet. It's subtle. I had a guy in Boston do a book review, and I love what he said. In the review, he said, AJ Brown writes horror with heart. And I was like, yeah, that's what it is, because I delve into the emotion, and I don't really get into splatter punk and gore for gore's sake. And I want you to feel something when you read my stories. And one of those things is not discussed. I want you to fall in love or hate the character. And so a lot of my horror is quiet, is subtle. You don't see it until it, you don't feel it until it's happened. You're like, oh wait, this was leading up to this. And then you realize that's the whole story. Is it's all been one quiet, subtle step after another.
So you don't really have two books the same, or you don't have a sort of tried and tested tropes in your genre. Is it each story just as it comes to you? Is that the way you kind of create?
Yeah, I am. I don't. I never outline. I never. I have usually a first line and a character, and that's it. And then as the story goes, I just let it ride. I let the characters say, "Hey, AJ, I want you to do this." And sometimes I'll be like, "No, I don't think so." And of course, when I say, "No, I don't think so," guess what? I end up going that way anyway, because if I don't, the story's going to suck. But yeah, I am very much a fly by the seat of my pants guy, and I love doing it that way because it's just natural.
Do you think, particularly, I think we kind of touched on this, and you've mentioned in your blogs and that about social media in particular. Do you think because people are trying to get maybe a bit of a pecking order and establish rank and superiority, do you think in return for that they're kind of making writing and creation very clinical?
I think that I think that's a very good point. I think that maybe the writing being clinical is just because they're not taught better, or that's what they've read. They're seeing and they're trying to emulate what other people are doing because those people are selling. But I do believe that they're establishing a pecking order, but the pecking order that they're establishing isn't necessarily with the writing, it's with how they're going. Essentially, like, say you and I are writers,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well, I call
I
myself more of a dabbler. I've scribbled a few things down, but I would never class myself as a writer because I get distracted too easily.
yeah, I get that. I know a few people who dabble, but as an example, say you and I are writers, and if this is the case, I'm not your competition and you're not my competition. We're both trying to get a piece of that same pie. So a lot of people, and this is one of the things that kind of last year I got so disgusted with, is a lot of authors, a lot of writers attacking other writers, attacking other storytellers to try to make themselves look good. And I was like, there was like about a 6 or 7 week period on social media and on websites and stuff like that, where you just saw like this writer saying something about this writer, and then witch hunt. It was a witch hunt, a witch hunt, a witch hunt. And every time you turn around, and I saw like 5 or 6 of these things over like a 4 or 5 week period, and I was just like, this is disgusting. And so they were, in my opinion, it was those people who were starting all these problems. They were afraid of the ones that they were starting the problems with. They saw them as a challenge to whatever piece of the pie they're getting, and that's not good. I'm not going to see you or any other writer as competition, because I know what I write. I know what the readers who read my work like. So that's who I'm looking for. If
Do these
and I
guys
help
not
promote.
understand that readers buy more than one book, and 9 times out of 10 buy more books that they can actually read?
Yep, I'm that way.
Yeah.
It's,
So I don't understand. It's not like my favorite author of all time. I know, although I'm a horror fan, my favorite author is Terry Pratchett.
okay.
That's fantasy genre. Just his writing, his sense of humor, his world building. No one will equal it.
I can agree
That's
with you.
had all the Discworld series, had his Carpet People series, his Johnny series. I mean, he's uh, Just absolutely fantastic writer. Gone too soon, unfortunately. Um,
Yes.
and even he's also protective of his work. He didn't want it to be bastardized or carried on with other people. He even had Neil Gaiman attend the ceremony where the steam got a steamroller because he was a real fan of the old steam engines and actually crushed his hard drives.
Yes. Yes. I
There's,
love
you know, what I
Neil
mean,
Gaiman.
that's pure artistry. You know, what I mean, that's someone dedicated to their art. And to me, I'll never be Terry Pratchett. Never even try to be. Am I going to sit and tear down Terry Pratchett, the man who, if it wasn't for him existing and for writing down words, getting me inspired, I would not be sitting here right now talking to the likes of yourself. It's madness.
And that's the great thing about any person who's in a position to inspire. Terry Pratchett for you. I read my first Stephen King book when I was 8 years old. It was Carrie, and I literally read it like shortly after it came out, and that was the first novel I ever read. And I was like, wow, this is fascinating. And even though there were some words I didn't understand, it was still
But
fascinating.
that's why you go and look upwards. That's how you
Yes,
learn. If people don't understand the power of entertainment, a lot of people dismiss it and put it away as childish things. But you learn so much more. I didn't go to a great school. I didn't, you know what I mean, rough area, bad time in the world as well when I was growing up. So the library books, if it wasn't for those, if it wasn't for having stories, I wouldn't have applied myself to try and go and get a dictionary, to look up words, to understand what they meant, because I was enjoying this story. This bit got in the middle, and I wanted to understand it because I didn't want to lose the story. People forget how powerful creation is. That's why I'm a major proponent. We don't want these vacuous corporations who the people at the top have about as much imagination as a brick,
agreed.
being in charge of creative projects. Do you know what I mean? I understand the artist needs to be contained sometimes because you have to have reality and make money. There's always a balancing act, but if we don't stop attacking each other and actually lift each other up and move forward, we're heading down a bad place, and I don't like it.
We really, we really are, and that's a very good point. Is one of the things that, um, for a long time, like on my website, Type AJ Negative, I've done a lot of interviews with people, including some authors I had never heard of until somebody said, "Hey, why don't you go talk to this person?" And what I've learned is, hey, they're just like you. They're just like me. They're just like Joe down the street. They're people. They have feelings. They have goals. They have desires, and we have to help them, lift them up, because this is a hard business, and you can get so discouraged so quickly and give up.
Well, absolutely. Even doing things like podcasts and all, if you get bogged down into the algorithms and the clicks and the likes, and that's all you're chasing, then you're not spending time creating content. Same as if you're writing. If you're only interested in book sales, well, guess what? You're not spending your time. The main moment of creativity is not a wasted moment.
Right.
If you put something together and you put it out there in the world, that doesn't mean it's a waste of time. Yeah, you may not see it in your lifetime, but you don't know what the future holds.
Absolutely. And anytime, if you take the moment to create anything, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's art, whether I mean, like it's painting, or whether it's music or a poem, or a book or a short story or a podcast, you've accomplished something that so many people won't, because you tried, you put that effort in, and any effort is worth more than any money. A lot of people won't agree with me on that, but effort and creativity and art, you can't buy that. You can't sell that.
But everyone focuses on the money, like the direct. I think it's as well as sort of click culture. Everyone expects the instant gratification, but you don't know what's going to help you later on. For example, doing this, just we were just talking before we went live about getting used to technology and setting up phones, devices, downloading apps. How do you not know that's those skills that you've picked up just to have a chat online for an hour or so isn't going to benefit you somewhere else? Next thing you know, you're in a workplace situation, you haven't taken a job for a while, or you're in a position to help somebody else. And I was doing that last week. Here, that's how you do it. all of a sudden that's benefited somebody else. Your standing as a person or as a skilled person goes up because
Absolutely.
you have an extra skill that you didn't have before. I think people now don't understand how one action, it doesn't have to be a direct result of it, but it can be something down the line, and it may not benefit you directly. Oh, go away, Zoom. Right, this is hang on, clicking the wrong window. This one talking about technology. Does weird random stuff. But you help somebody else out, you show them you've got knowledge. Next thing you know, they're recommending you to somebody else for something you didn't even realize was related. Your life's moved forward.
Absolutely. That's I years and years ago when I first started writing, I was horrible, and I got rejected. This one publisher said, you got great ideas, you just don't execute well. And so he invited me into this group, and I learned so much in that group. So as I'm in this group and I'm meeting other writers outside the group, I'm saying, hey, you need to go talk to this guy. You need to go talk to this guy who helped me. He might be able to help you in the same way. And so I would send people to this guy, and next thing you know, a lot of these people were in the same group that he had invited me to. And because he had, as an editor of a publication, said, hey, you got great ideas, your execution sucks. Let me show you how to do this. And that bit of kindness kept me going. And I try to share that same kindness with other people.
Yeah, I'm no fluffy, bleeding heart type person. Anyone that speaks to me more than 10 minutes, especially when a kid gets rattled about something, will understand that very quickly. But I don't believe in going around being a dick. You know what I mean? I don't get it. You be nice to people until they give you a reason not to be, and then you unleash on them.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think if everyone just took that attitude of, do you know what? Just gonna go, do my thing. If I can help somebody along the way, what's it to me?
Right.
You'd be surprised where you end up.
Yeah. And you may not think you're doing anything big. It could just be a little thing like, just like you're saying, you and I were talking about beforehand. I was trying to get into the call using a link, and you're like, no, use the app. Of course, I didn't know that. That's something now that I will remember. And it was a little thing that you did, but I'll remember it from now on.
And that's cool. And you, like I said, you could help someone else out, and so it continues.
Right. And it all pays itself on down the road.
Absolutely, like we're having a great chat. I don't think we're, like I said, it's those notes at the start of the show and stuff, which accidentally flashed up on the screen as well, because I'm doing brilliantly so far, having all sorts of fluff ups here. But that's the joy of going live and doing one of these things off the cuff. It's you're going to get that stuff, but you can't let it rattle you. Just the sake of helping someone out, showing a bit of encouragement. I've met so many people like yourself. Touch wood. I've faced a few negative people, but they're just random, like, creeps who aren't happy with life anyway. They just sit and live a miserable existence. And the best thing you can do with something like that is to be happy and productive and get on with your life, because that'll stir them up more than getting involved in the backbiting.
Oh yeah, you get somebody who don't like you, you piss them off by doing well.
Absolutely, it's and this actually has a whole point of the conversation, because you have mentioned before you had to step away from publishing for a while because of all this negativity.
Yes, I my editor was really getting concerned because most of our conversations, I was having a hard time dealing with all the negativity within the actual publishing business, not the writing world, but the publishing business, with the way authors were treating each other, with the backstabbing, with authors. I mean, I literally talked to an author who stole work from another author, and I was like, dude, this is word for word what this guy wrote. You plagiarized this guy. And that's the other thing is I don't deal well with people treating people like shit. And so I call them out. And a lot of times I'll call them out in private because, I don't want to, do this in public and make them, make a big scene. But if it gets to that point where it's like, dude, you're treating this person like crap. You're talking bad to this person. You're talking down to this person. How do you think this person feels on the other end? And or you stole this from this person, or you know, you shouldn't have done this, or whatever, or why did you do this to this guy or this girl or whatever, and then laugh about it. And I said, this person has feelings. And it got to a point where I was just getting mad and madder and madder, and I was no longer enjoying publishing or writing. And I've been writing since 1993, and I love writing. I love telling stories, but there got to a point where I wasn't even enjoying writing. And I was like, I got to step away, because the one thing I love outside of my family, I hate right now. And so I wrote a letter to my publisher, editor, and all the people within the publishing company that I was working with. And I said, I got to step away. And then I wrote a letter on social media, and then on my website, I got to step away. And I honestly wasn't going to come back to publishing. And my buddy Justin in Australia wrote me and said, dude, this is what you love. You can't just quit because people pissed you off. Get yourself in the right place and come back when you're ready. Then I had another friend, my buddy John, in Chicago. He was like, hey, I wrote this story last night, and I don't know why I wrote this story until I got to the end. I realized this is you, and this is what you've been struggling with. And I read it, and I was like, yeah, I got to get back in the business. And so almost 8 months went by, and I was writing, and I was enjoying it. I was writing some of the best stuff I've written in years, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna step back in, but I'm gonna step in and put my own book out. I already had the book. It was already ready. It was actually about to come out right around the time I quit. And it felt right. It felt so good. And all of a sudden I realized I let all of this negativity, these other authors, these people in the business take my joy. And I was like, nope, that's never going to happen again. I got my joy back. I'm going to do my thing and just ignore everybody else as far as the negative people, the negative business part.
So that's I've had quite a few hobbies over the years, and one reason I've left them is because of people and toxicity. I can't abide it. I'm a pretty much straightforward, heart in my sleeve type person, and when people start getting sneaky and underhanded and do all that stuff, I lose it.
Yeah.
That's one thing I'm very careful about with this show, and the people that contribute. I make sure they're looked after, make sure everyone's still involved afterwards. We'll have a group together. Those that want to obviously continue, I let them know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, publishing or promoting their works out there. It's just all part of it. But every step of the way, I make sure I'm transparent. Anyone wants to ask me a question, they just have to drop me a message. And that's...
Yeah.
I think, and it's no hassle to me to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not hard. Right. And if you're honest about what you do, then you shouldn't be afraid of questions.
Yeah. Well, if you're honest, you don't have to cover your lies either.
Oh God, I have too bad a memory for that. Honestly, means you have to start remembering stuff. If you hear me giving a review of something, I start getting confused. Even though I've like watched something the night before, I start getting confused. Something else jumps into my brain. I'm like, oh, hold on, no, stop, back where I was. So I'd be awful at being a sneaky person because I just don't have the mentality for it. But I just are the people that get on this? Are they just not self-aware? Do they not see the damage they're doing themselves in the long run? Because you can't carry on like that. Especially, I've seen that in the indie publishing. I've seen especially horror. Horror is such a niche genre anyway, even though it's wide-spanning. I think it's one of the most diverse, wide-spanning genres, but it's still very niche. You're going to get caught out.
I think those who do the bad stuff to other people don't care. I think that outside of publishing, they're probably bullies, or they're probably not that great of a person as it is, as far as who they are moralistically. And that's a sad thing, because you can be a brilliant writer, but a total douche, and I'm sorry if if you're a jerk to me and I love your work, I'm not reading your work anymore because I can't back you. I can't say, yeah, this person's he's awesome, because yeah, he's a great writer, but he's kind of a jerk, and I don't think the people who are that way care. I mean, and don't get me wrong.
The hell? Oh, what the hell's happened here? Hi, folks. Sorry, we appear to be having Hi, folks. Sorry, appear to have lost John. Something's went wrong with Zoom. So sorry about this. Hopefully we'll get. Here we go. Are we back?
Are you there?
Yes, John. Yes. Oh,
I
sorry,
do
Jeff.
not
Where
know
am I
what
getting John
happened.
from? Sorry, told you about being scatterbrained. We seem to have disconnected there for some reason. Back to what I said about technology. Flip, you can do all the tests you want. The internet is a fickle beast.
Yeah, but hey, we got back on. So
Yeah, Flip. This
that
is
that's
a
the,
this is
sorry about
fun.
that. I don't know, but my phone just said, wait, stop. And so I was like, hold on, wait, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I was
And
like,
so,
right, where were we? Sorry, right. So we're talking about negativity. We're talking about these people not caring. Um,
but there's some
just
great people. That's what I was getting to next is there are some great people. Man, I know some fabulous people who a lot of people probably don't know. I mean, there's Pete Moner. He's a terrific uh, guy who lives in Philly, and he's a teacher, and he writes these great, amazing books. There's again my buddy Justin in Australia who's got the heart of a gold, and his brother Robert. They're just fabulous writers. There's uh, Lisa Vasquez, who is an amazing cover artist, former publisher, a terrific writer, just great people who would give the shirt off their backs for you. And thankfully, there's a lot more of those than the negative ones. The problem is the negative ones are the squeaky wheel, and you hear them and you see them more than you see all the positive ones.
yeah, but that's the thing. Human proclivity. We are hardwired to look for danger. Therefore, negative news, negative impact. That's the thing that piques our interest. So that's what we'll home in for. It's unfortunately we're still chimps in suits. So the old lizard brain in the back, still operates. Even though how enlightened we've become, we're still going to be an animal. At the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And this is the new
Absolutely.
way. We don't have. I always said the world's problem could be sorted out by kaiju's. Honestly, if kaiju's just materialized and it didn't matter what status, what level of society we're on, but just appeared every so often and just wiped out a few people, so we knew something was bigger than us, I think we'd actually be a lot happier. It might sound a bit twisted and weird, but
No, I don't think it's twisted and weird. I think it's accurate. Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned earlier there's no consequences, and really honestly, there are not a lot of consequences. I mean, you can get canceled on social media and in the culture, but as far as like personal, individual consequences that hurt, there's not as many as there used to be. You can be the most immoral person in the world now and be a billionaire. It's
yeah, and if you don't care, you just start back up again and you keep going. So if you have no actual moral compass, and it doesn't matter what people get that from, some get it from religion, some get it from spirituality, some people get it from scientific research. You know what I mean? Whatever it does, whatever it takes to get you and pointing your true north, so to speak, crack on with it. But for those that don't have that, they won't stop, and they'll not even be phased. It's just a bump in the road to them. Where I know if people were to attack me or call me a liar or use. I've had people when I first started this podcast were accusing me of leeching off authors. I'm
Nah,
like,
see, that's the thing is,
and I'm like, where does that even come from?
here's the thing. Here's the thing. In a realistic world, we need each other. We need each other. You're talking about horror and you're talking with authors and stuff like that, and the authors need you to help promote their work. So it's not leeching off of them. You're helping each other.
But
That's
somebody
what
with that
this is
mindset,
about.
you'll never change. Like, I was a bit taken aback, but I didn't take it personally, if that makes sense, because I know where I am.
Oh
So
yeah.
that ended up just going, what are you on? Just go and lie down. And thankfully, people are starting to get interested, and we're nearly 70 episodes in of Horrific Tales. So there's speaks for itself how
Oh
well
yeah.
we're going, and meeting people like yourself as well. This is a pretty recent segment because I didn't want to start it until the technology was right,
Oh yeah.
because getting set up for live streaming and trying to find the smoothest way to do it is not easy. There's so
I'm
many
sure.
so many
I'm
bumps
sure.
along the road. So before I start offering out to people, I wanted to make sure I had the whole thing down. And even tonight we've had a hiccup already.
Yeah, but
That's nothing you can plan for. You know what I mean?
here's the thing is, just sitting here talking to you, it's very clear to me that you enjoy doing this.
Absolutely. I
That
wouldn't do it if I
and,
didn't.
and see, and here's the thing is anybody who would say, "Oh, you're leeching off of the authors or whatever." I mean, you don't have to listen.
Oh,
You
absolutely
know,
not.
you don't have to listen. But the people who enjoy the podcast and the people who you are helping, and clearly, uh, the fact that you enjoy it, that's what matters. These leeches, these people who say you're leeching, yeah, they're going to be negative. You're not going to change their mind. They're just that's just the way they are. And
Yeah,
they
they're just
probably say
hardwired.
that
They're
about.
just miserable, like we said, and same as the negativity you've faced. It's just those sort of people that is their mindset. That is the shape of their cog. It's never going to change or adapt. They'll
Right,
always be like
right.
that, and
Yeah,
you just happen to be the next target. That comes along, and when you don't bite or you don't crumble, they don't get that endorphin, rush by breaking you. They'll look for someone
yeah.
else.
They will, and that's the sad thing, and that's how you know. And I mentioned bully earlier, but that's how you know they're a bully because once lack of a better term, once you hit the bully in the face, they go away. And once you don't respond, and once they realize that, oh, I can't break this guy or this girl, they find somebody else. They look for somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's great that they're no longer messing with you or me, but it sucks for the person that they're going after who may not have the same, like whatever, go away.
Which actually kind of leads me on to my next sort of question. You actually do a lot of mentoring for other writers. You kind of touched on it briefly, but you actually officially carry out mentoring for writers. Is part of this culture part of your motivation for doing it? To try and shield people from these kind of morons.
Well, my motivation for doing it is yeah. There are a lot of people who are going to steer you wrong, but there's also a lot of people who won't help you. And one of the things when I first started out writing, I would get rejections with things like show don't tell, active not passive voice, and things like that. And I, being dumb at the time, not knowing I shouldn't respond to the emails, I'd be like, "What do you mean? I don't understand. I don't. What are you trying to say? I don't get this." And I'd never get a response. And so when I started mentoring, one of the things I wanted to do was help people with the things that people wouldn't help me on. When I had a question and I couldn't get an answer, and I had to research and find the stuff out, and I don't want other people to get a rejection that says show don't tell and not know what show don't tell
Yeah, because then you
means.
can't carry out the action to fix it and progress.
Right.
If it's just words on a
And
paper and you're like, what? you know,
show and tell, when I was a kid, show and tell was something you did at school on Friday afternoons.
mhm.
That was what do you mean show don't tell? But to me, I started mentoring because I had a couple of people help me, and I was like, man, you know what? I know how it felt when I got helped. And so I wanted to do the same thing. And I wanted to teach other people the stuff that I had to learn on my own. And I actually wrote a curriculum at the beginning of last year. And I had my first student go through it August through December of last year, and it was amazing. It was so much fun, and she enjoyed it. And she and I still talk. And that's the one great thing about mentoring is when you're done mentoring them, they're not just your student. They're now your friends. And now you keep in touch and you have conversations with these people. And that's what you want. You want to help them. That's what I want, at least. I want to help them. I want to help them go forward and not go, I don't understand this. Help me understand. So my goal with mentoring is I want to help you understand. And so that's why I do it. And I absolutely enjoy it. Now I've had a couple of jerks. I've had a couple of people that I've had to go, I'm done. You know, I'm not going to work with somebody who's going to just be a jerk about things. It's like, yes, you're either here to learn and we can have discussions, or you're not, or you're here just to be a jerk. And I'm not. I had one person. I'm not going to say the person's name, but I always ask the same question. Yeah, I always say the same thing at the beginning. What are you looking to get out of this program? And the individual said, I want you to make me the next Stephen King. And I said, I can't do that, because if I could do that, I'd already be the next Stephen King. I said, but I can make you the first you. And the person wasn't happy with that. And when I actually started breaking the course down and we did the first couple of things, and the person just wasn't listening and was arguing about, well, I don't want to change this. Yeah, but this is why you need to change this, and this is how you change, this is how you fix it. And I was like, first person just kept basically arguing and saying, no, I want to write like this. I'm like, what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you come to me if you don't want to change anything about your writing? And if you don't want to get better at it. And so, there's been a couple of people where I've had to just like, okay, we're done here, because I'm not going to wait.
Time can be better spelled somewhere else. I can understand there's like, if you create something, you put a bit of yourself into it.
Absolutely.
So to have negative criticism, constructive or otherwise, that's an attack on you, and it's hard. It hurts. It's hard to take, but
it is.
If you want to get better, but it's also about finding the right person. Like I said, there's a lot of bullies out there, and another thing is, you've probably noticed, and we've talked about it in this as well, because part of these chats are to show people that there's not just the one way. There's multiple ways to get yourself out there. Don't feel underwhelmed. I want more creators, not less, if that makes sense. Because now, absolutely, people are disenfranchised with Hollywood. They're disenfranchised with the main publishing houses, and you go to an airport bookstore. No, that's always the acetate. You'll see the most bland, repetitive, beige stuff.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's just pointless, non-inspiring. It's your burgers and fries. You know what I mean? There's nothing's going to make you walk away, go, wow, that was the most amazing experience. So we're at the perfect time to get more creators. So here's another avenue. We've got Jeff here who provides mentorship. I've put the links in the description. Reach out. Don't be afraid to. There's another option. Might not work for you. You know what I mean? It takes two people to actually gel. That's part of it as well. So don't think that that's a bad person or you're a bad person. Sometimes two people don't mix, but then that's why you have to keep an open mind and then look for the next person. But I don't say, once again, back to the start of this conversation, why abuse someone? Why fight? You don't go to someone to ask for advice or help and then turn on them when it's not what you want to hear. There's plenty of echo chambers out there. That's one thing the internet's created. You can find an echo chamber and smell each other's farts till the cows come home, you know what I mean? And live in a happy little cloudy bubble. But I just don't get the mindset.
I think you really hit on it. Is when you create something and somebody says something negative, whether it's constructive or not, they take that personally. There was a very popular book reviewer. This is probably 7 or 8 years ago, who did this book review for this lady, and he always put it on his own personal website. Then he put it on Goodreads, Amazon, and wherever else she wanted it. So he told her that up front that if he does the review, it's his review. It's not going to be, the words she wants him to say. She agreed to it. Well, he put it up, and there was some negative stuff in it, but he also hit on some really positive points, because he was always very fair. And so she went to his website and demanded that he remove it, and called him all sorts of names, and then went on to Amazon and tried to get it removed through Amazon, and went to Goodreads and tried to get it removed from Goodreads. And so the people who followed this guy's website started like, hey, lady, I mean, you asked for a book review. He gave you a book review. He could have given you 1 star. Instead, he gave you 3 stars. Why are you
3 stars is a brilliant book review.
Right, and
once again, it's this mentality of, and I blame apps like Uber and Lyft, where if it's less than 5 stars, the thing starts freaking out. And exceptional service or an exceptional experience is exceptional. That's the whole point. But there's this, once again, the corporate monotony of that's just the standard and we don't want to hear anything else. And it's people's expectations, I think, are just so skewed these days.
If you're an artist of any type, you have to be able to take criticism. You absolutely have to be able to take criticism. Man, I mean, I had exactly 100 rejections before I got my first acceptance. But one of those rejections, the editor said, and I'm going to quote this, "Never write another story. You're not good at it. Never do it again. Never, ever, ever." That was painful, because that wasn't a tactic. That wasn't a commentary on the story I sent. That was a commentary on me personally. And I mean, it hurt. And for a very short period, I was pissed because this person attacked me.
That's not even an analysis of your story. That's just that's a bully. You know what I mean? That's what we're talking about. That's a classic bully. That's someone that gets off on destroying people.
Absolutely. But at that point, I was very new at this, but it also taught me that I had to have very thick skin, and I had to not wear my emotions on my shoulders or on my shirt sleeve, because it's going to get knocked off, and that was where I realized, if I'm going to be in this business, A, I got to get better, and B, I've got to take the criticism for what it is. If it's about the story and if it's something that can help the story, absolutely, I'm willing to listen to it. I'm willing to entertain it. But if it's a direct attack on me, or if it's a direct attack on my abilities, that's a different story. I mean, I want to help people in the same respect of not getting this type of reaction, but also in teaching them that, hey, you're going to get this. Mm-hmm. This is going to happen. This is what you do when it does happen. Because I didn't have that fallback. I didn't have that when it happened to me. So trying to teach people, hey, you're going to get an asshole one day.
Yeah,
that's just that simple.
Or a whole clutter, mm-hmm. Because back to saying, there's some little groups. I learned very quickly when I was starting this show and reaching out that there's some very toxic groups, and I just pulled out. Once I saw it, I was straight out. I've now whittled down to, the only people I interact with are, I see them being reasonable to each other. I see respect. Nobody has to like everything you do. But that is a fact. The minute you decide to put yourself out there, whether it's through this, pages in a book, whether you pick up an instrument, you're going to be judged.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you see it. You see it like, I mean, right now, the whole Johnny Depp, Amber Heard thing, and everybody's judging Amber Heard and everybody's judging Johnny Depp. And really, that's their personal life, and we shouldn't be involved in that at all. But they're out there, they're Hollywood actors and actresses, and they're going to get criticized for all the stuff that happens in their personal lives. Mm-hmm. And as artists, as people who put ourselves out there, even on a smaller scale, people are going to criticize. You just have to take that criticism, with salt.
Yeah. That's another reason for this as well, is to explain to people this is going to happen to you, but don't not do it. Don't not try. The worst thing anybody can do is not try.
Absolutely.
That's my belief. You don't try, you may as well give up on life.
Well, I would rather fail 1,000 times over than not try. And I will try something, especially like when with writing. I like to say I write outside of the book, not outside the box, but I write outside the book. Basically meaning I will break any rule if it works. I'm not going to break it just to break it, but I will break any rule if it works in that particular story. Um, and I'm not afraid to break a rule where so many people are like, oh, it's got to be this way. It's got to be this way. The grammar has to be this way. These words, you can't use this, can't use that. Um, you need to write a story that somebody's going to understand, that somebody's going to want to read, that's going to be readable. So don't be concerned about what somebody else is going to say about it. Just do it, and you'll find you enjoy it so much more. And that's that. Just trying and failing is so. I would rather try and fail every time
Yeah, that's
than
how
to
you get
not try it.
better. That's how you grow as a person. Plus, try something you're not good at. At least you know you're not good at it. But
Yes,
here's the trick: know why you're not good at it.
yeah,
Is it
and learn from that.
because you're not a dancer because you don't have hand-eye coordination, or you're not prepared to maintain the level of fitness, or you're not a musician because you don't like standing in front of people, or do you not understand music theory? Don't be a writer because you actually don't want to spend what I mean, you're spending months or years on an idea and it's never going to see fruition. But that's something you're always going to be working on, and that's one of the trouble of keeping a writer's page. It's either I'm writing, I'm not writing, I'm writing, I'm not writing. Here's the thing: a year later, I'm writing, not writing. It's if you're
Well,
not prepared for that, but unless you try, you don't know.
right, right. You're right. And I just like t- with writing and I I wrote I write a lot of dark stuff, but I wrote a love story um a year and a half ago, and it turned into a novel. I was terrified to write it. I said, I can't write a love story. I write dark stuff. I kill people in my stories. I can't write this. And so for about, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months, my editor kept saying, you need to do this. Cause she had already seen pretty much where I was heading mentally. And she said, I need you to write something outside of your norm, just write a love story. And I was like, yeah, not happening. And so for a while there, and then I started entertaining it. And then she kept putting it off. She goes, have you written that love story yet? And so finally I said, fine, I'm going to write the love story. One of the smoothest, most, one of the easiest stories I've ever written. And it turned into a novel. And I absolutely love the story. Um, but I didn't think I could do it.
But did you feel, because you've classed yourself as horror, did you feel like you were compromising yourself in any shape or form? Or is it just another extension of yourself? Once you got started, obviously you have the ideas in your head, but now that you got started, do you think
Well,
you've become less of a horror writer for doing it? Or
no,
exploring
absolutely
that
not.
side of things, has that helped you?
Oh, absolutely. Because actually, when I wrote it, I actually started looking back at some of my other stories. One of my novels has a very strong love interest. The book that came out in September, it was a love story surrounded about ghost and murder, and I didn't realize it until I finished writing it. I was like, wait a minute, this turned out to be a love story after all. And this was outside of the actual love story I wrote. I've actually realized that love and fear go so hand in hand, and you can have so much fun with creating a character that falls in love and then fears something happening to that person, or something happens to that person, how that character is going to react. And that's terrifying. And if you can really get somebody to go, ow,
Mm-hmm.
that hurt me, then you succeeded. And I've realized that after writing that love story, that I've been writing love stories and horror stories mixed together for years and years and years. But this was just a pure love story. And I was like, yeah, this is awesome.
Cool.
So,
But that's the thing about horror as well. We go down to our base emotions. I think people like creature. I love creature features. But at the same time, the scary monster in the dark, the worst one's the one you don't see.
yes.
And that's what I think is wonderful about this genre is more than any other genre out there. And I've already mentioned I'm a fan of fantasy, but there's rules. People are lockstep into certain archetypes. But with horror, that all goes out the window.
Yes, it
And
does.
I think a lot of people, especially coming into writing, they're trying to impose rules on a genre that effectively doesn't have one. Like horror is chaos. You know what I mean? I think it's the best
Yeah.
way to describe it. It's just horror is complete and utter chaos. You can have a sci-fi drama, a romantic horror. You can have medieval horror. You can have modern day horror. You can have interdimensional beings. You can. There's no there's no ifs, bounds, or any limitations in what you can do. And do you think maybe people find that a bit daunting? And because they're trying to impose rules, does that maybe where the negativity comes from? Because they're trying to quantify it,
Well,
then they
a
get
lot of,
an idea in their
you know,
head.
it's kind of like when Metallica went from being the band that they were in the early '80s, and then putting out the Black Album, and so many fans got mad because you're selling out, you're selling
Oh, they
out. You
didn't
know,
know what was to come after. Go
absolutely.
back in
And I think that's
and
the same thing.
rejoice.
Right, right. And I think it's the same thing with writing is with horror is people are used to, you know, the type of horror that is scary, bloody, gory monsters, in your face type stuff, or they're wanting to put it in a box and say, this is horror, this is not horror. But look, you know what? 9/11 here in America, that was horror. That was absolute horror at its most epicness because thousands of people died and it was horrific and how they died. Horror, I mean, we had a shooting here in my hometown at the mall 4 weeks ago. 14 people got hurt because two guys got mad at each other. That's horror.
Yeah,
But you can't sit,
the scariest
you know,
monster is actually human.
yes, yes. And that's the thing is horror, humor and horror, the two hardest things to write. It's hard to make people laugh and it's hard to scare people. And Stephen King said that years and years ago, but it's true because when you start writing horror and you start getting people who are like, well, that's not horror. Well, no, you can't do that with horror. That's not good horror. Actually it is. Cause I mean, you can write, you know, intergalactic monsters terrorizing the earth and then going back to whatever planet they're from. You can write, Southern Gothic, which can be seriously horrific if you do it right. You can do what Edgar Allan Poe did. You can get Alfred Hitchcock, who was amazing at the you don't see the monster, but he's there. It's there. And horror is just it spans everything. I mean, you got black horror, you got erotic horror or erotica or whatever it's called.
I
You
just remember
have
from erotic horror, I used to talk to a few writers of that. It's the only thing
yeah.
that bored. The only thing I didn't get about erotic horror was normal movie. Here's the sex scene, just plunked in, carried on. So it didn't really mesh. It was almost like it just got inserted. But then
Well,
again,
that's what a
that
lot
might
of
have been the
people do.
writing style.
Well, a lot of people do that, and that's one of the things that it's very cliche in the fact that the three things that sell in horror is sex, gore, and foul language. Those are the three things that everybody's like, oh, we got to put this in there. We got to put this in there. We got to put this. No, you don't. You don't need any of that. And a lot of times, I've made a lot of people mad by saying this, but in my opinion, if you just write sex for sex sake, gore for gore's sake, or language for language sake, you're a lazy writer.
But
You
is that
know,
people once again back to the start of the conversation? Do people not understand storytelling anymore?
they don't. You said that we've lost storytelling, and I wrote a book 5 or 6 years ago, and in it I wrote over and over, storytelling hadn't gone away. The art of storytelling has, because people don't tell stories anymore. You can be a brilliant writer, but if you don't have a good story to tell, it doesn't matter. And you're right. I do think that people have lost the ability to tell stories. Not all of them. There's some fabulous small press and indie press authors out there who can tell a great story. I mean, you've probably never heard of this guy, but John Mantooth is the master of it. Of course, he doesn't go by John Mantooth anymore, but master of amazing storytellers. If you get a chance, look up.
Oh, absolutely. Every time there's always somebody new, somebody never heard of, and it's like, oh wow, right, great.
Yeah,
There,
and he's
there's
got the
there's
great.
another one for the list that I'll get round
Well,
to
he has a
eventually.
great horror name, John Mantooth. That is an awesome horror name. When he wrote Shoebox Trainwreck years ago, and I can't remember. It's been at least 8-9 years ago. And I read that, and then I read it again, then I read it again. And the only author who I've ever read multiple times is Stephen King, and John Mantooth is the other one because his storytelling is magnificent and fabulous, fabulous, fabulous author, terrific, genuine guy. But people don't write like that. People don't write the stories. They just kind of vomit onto a page and call it good.
No, it's we have a segment running. It's called Fireside Frights, and it's basically the old stories around the campfire. You know, kids don't do that anymore.
Say
Don't
again.
go. Kids don't do that anymore. When they go camping and round the campfire and then tell spooky stories.
Oh yeah,
That doesn't happen anymore. And that's where people bond, and that's where you exercise your storytelling ability. It's an innate thing. It's not an academic thing. I think back to what I'm. Sorry about this. This is Zoom causing these problems for some reason. Zoom's been an absolute nightmare. It wants money and
yeah,
it's not getting any. Um,
oh, yeah, yeah. Everybody wants the money.
yeah, but offer something. You know what I mean? If I think it's good enough, yeah, but I'm not just throwing money at things for no reason. But back to what I was saying, right down to when we were still in caves, we told stories, we painted them on walls. It's a fundamental part of humanity. It's not an academical exercise, and I think there's a certain group trying to make it one, or once again impose a hierarchy that
Right.
you're only allowed to do this if you're part of the club, which I think's completely wrong.
Absolutely, I agree. That's I there's a couple of associations that I have not joined because of that very reason. Because I don't want to be part of a club to be able to have my book noticed. I want my book to be noticed because it's good. And a lot of people are like, "Well, that's going to hurt your sales." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care. I want people to like my book because it's good. Not because some big worldwide association says it's good. Because if I got to pay you to say that,
Yeah,
it's not true. It's not true.
it's the
So
same as you saw it in the music industry. Artists will actually buy 100,000 copies of their single just to get it in the charts. Now, the charts have become so devalued now; it's not even worth looking at. Where
right,
growing up, obviously the charts were the thing. That's how you found out new artists and
right.
music. But I think that whole veneer has been peeled away, like Hollywood. Or, you know what I mean? You're seeing these people, and you're seeing what type of people they are, and it makes you less
Mhm.
inclined to follow them. That's why I voiced my concern about Stephen King, because it's like, if you keep going, or if you get more combative, then I'm not going to enjoy your work,
Right.
and
And
I'm
that's
less likely
absolutely
to buy
true.
your next book.
Yes,
Uh,
I agree.
and it doesn't
And
matter
that's
whether I
sad.
agree with you or not. It's the way you come across. So you could talk about a topic that I'm 100% agree with, but if you're getting on like an absolute dingbat, being really nasty, I don't want to be associated with that.
Well, see, and that's actually I'm the same way in that respect because, and that's why like I never talk about politics online. I won't talk about politics very often at all. Um, I try to steer away from religion as far as discussing religion,
Two
or
most
even
divisive topics, and for years, you're always told in the workplace they're the two things you don't discuss,
politics and
unless you're
religion.
with, I mean, that's the way you test or break a friendship. Yet it's permeated everything now.
Yes, it is. It's you're either one or the other now. And that's the scary thing is everybody's so judgmental. If you're straight, you're getting judged. If you're gay, you're getting judged. If you're Republican, you're getting judged. If you're a Democrat, you're getting. If you're independent, you're getting judged for every little thing about life, and that's not the way it should be. We should be able to be who we are and not be afraid of who we are. And I think that's, one of the problems that we have across the board, especially, if you're creative, because that's your outlet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's your outlet. And a lot of people I know who are actually like brilliant writers or singers or artists, they need that outlet, and that's why they're so good at it, is because they've had to take that outlet to stay sane, and we should just be able to do that. We should be able to be who we are, and you know, but we're judged based on what the world sees in the media, what the world sees in Hollywood, what the world sees in politics and religions and everything that's thrown at us. It's kind of scary.
Yep. How do we break the cycle? Because that's one thing I think we should lift each other up. I think things, I guess, or any opportunity to help someone else out is part of the way. But how do we actually break that cycle and mindset? Because I've talked to a lot of people, seem to have a similar outlet. Thankfully, with my interactions, I haven't come across somebody yet who's so locked in, because I don't think I could have a conversation with somebody like that.
Right.
Whether
Yeah, I've actually
I'm on their side or not. I can't talk to an ideologue. I just can't.
Right. And I've had conversations with people who are just so here and not, open to any other interpretation. Honestly, the big thing is, I think, as a world, not as a nation, not as individual nations, not as an individual person, but as a world, we need to learn how to be kind. We've lost that. There's people who are kind, but so often you see that kindness being drowned out by such negativity and anger. And you don't see kindness reported on television.
No, it
You
doesn't
don't see
sell.
it in the news. You don't see it on the internet. You don't see it. Kindness is gone the way of the dinosaurs as far as media is concerned. But if we want the world to change, Michael Jackson saying it, you got to make a change. You got to look at your man in the mirror. The man in the mirror is you, and if you want to change the world, you got to change the world around you first. You got to change where you live, so if you say you're having problems with your neighbor, and maybe be kind to your neighbor, or maybe kind of change the narrative with your neighbor. And who knows that if the neighbor doesn't reciprocate or doesn't go for it, then at least you tried.
Yeah.
And then move to another person, because our world, where we live, that's where we have to start, and then just hopefully it branches out from there. But the problem is, so many people aren't worried about their world where they live. They're just worried about themselves.
Yeah, and there's no introspection, no thought or examination. Well, hopefully with like these conversations, that's why I say I'm never about, here's a list of questions, let's just talk about what's your writing style. That comes into it. But if you're creative, you look at the world, you can't create without being aware. Yeah. And that's why we need more creators, because they actually create something. You need to take stock, because you can't just throw words down on a page. You can't just put notes together. You have to have a passion behind it. You have to have a mindset. Yes, we all have biases. Every one of us, our life experiences take us down a certain path, and there's a reason why you fall into a certain group, or you can be loosely affiliated. That's life. And that's always going to ebb and flow. That's why no one power or no one... There would only be one book by one author, and that would be it. That would everybody would read. If people didn't have different opinions, there would only be one song that everybody listened to. There would only be one political party, because everyone thought the same. You know what I mean? That's not the world.
Right.
That's not the human condition.
You're absolutely right, and it never will be. But we could change the narrative where we live. If we could change the narrative where we live, that has the opportunity to change the narrative on a whole in your community. Maybe not necessarily in the world, but where you live. If you can change the narrative where you live, you've done some good stuff.
Yeah. Even start your own home. If your home is a place of calm and tranquility, even if you're living in a council estate or there's tires burning out in the waste ground, but if you can close your door and that's not a place of antagonism and hurt, at least there to start.
Yes,
you
absolutely.
Start with your neighbour. At least if you're not glaring at each other when you step out, even if it's nothing more than just a good morning, good afternoon, and that's it. Yes. That's doing no harm. Do you know what I mean?
I agree, and that's where we that's where we. And interesting enough is if you pay attention to horror, it's such a commentary on the world today and on the world every from as the years have gone by. It's such a commentary on the world, and I think that's part of why a lot of people are who don't read horror don't understand it. Is we're talking about what's going on in the world today, because I can't write what Edgar Allan Poe wrote. You know, I can't do what Alfred Hitchcock did, and I can't write the stuff that Stephen King did in the 70s and 80s, but I can write the stuff right now. And a lot of the stuff that we're writing and a lot of stuff that authors write today, commentaries on the world, and they don't realize it.
Yeah, because that's
And so,
you're like a sponge. You take it in. I used to love. Do you remember Alfred Hitchcock Presents, his like TV show, and he'd come out and he'd
love,
give his little presentation.
yes,
He was the
it was.
first personable director I think I ever encountered. Because
I
everyone
can
else was
agree.
on this pedestal, but he came up and he explained his works. And there's always this one quote by him: "I'd rather the audience be confused than bored," and that's something that always
I
stuck
can.
with me.
I can agree with that. You know, because at least they're engaged. You know, if they're bored, they're not engaged. They're not absolutely not engaged in the story. If they're confused, they're like, okay, well, why did this happen or what happened here? They're paying attention. They're trying to understand. So that's actually great. I'd rather them be confused than bored. Absolutely, I agree with Hitchcock on that.
Yeah, it was a. Oh my word! What the? Sorry, folks, if you can hear me. This is. I think this is my fault. This is a Zoom thing. For some reason, Zoom. Hopefully, we'll get Jeff back in a second, and then I think we'll sort of finish up. This has been a great chat, by the way. This is really frustrating because, yeah, we were having a great chat, and for some reason, Zoom's just being an absolute pig.
That's
Are you?
twice.
God, I
Twice.
have no idea why this is happening. Honestly,
Yep.
it's a Zoom issue.
Yeah, oh,
I've
absolutely
started
a
it.
Zoom
I'm sitting
issue.
here, green across the board with connection. Uh, you're coming through clearly. This is a Zoom issue. I don't know what it's playing at,
Absolutely, it's a Zoom issue because it just kicked me out again, and I'm like, what?
but it kicked
But
me out too.
fortunately, the fortunate thing is because it did it before, and I was concerned that it would do it again. I have your email up with all the information, so I just went,
So click
let's just.
straight back in. Yeah. No, it kicked me out as well, and I had to sign myself back in. I was just explaining there to folks that sorry about this. This is completely out of either of our hands, but that's the joy of getting on here.
Oh, absolutely. But you know,
I don't
hey,
let it phase me anymore. I just laugh at it because if you see some of our earlier broadcasts, some of the stuff that happened, and you just had to go with it. But this is a great chat. That's the thing. Getting really into sort of random topics, which I love, because that's the whole point of creativity as well. Just getting the mindset, because once you understand where somebody's coming from, you can understand, you can appreciate the material more and
yes,
appreciate why we do things. And hopefully, people are picking up an idea, that it's not closed. I want creativity to be an open door, not a closed one. And
right.
then it's up to yourself. It's up to yourself if you understand how good, bad, or if it's worth pursuing. But if you don't have the opportunity, you can't do that.
I agree. You know, and that's the thing is, if you don't have the opportunity, it's kind of sad. It's, I think that there's so much joy in creating. You know, there's so much joy in the art, the act of creating. You know, a lot of times I get done with the story and I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Let me start another one,
Mm-hmm.
because it's the act of the creating of the characters, of the scenes, of the events, and that brings me the joy. Not necessarily the finishing, and not necessarily the putting the product out for people to read, but the act of the actual creating is where all the joy is. And I think I think if you lose that, which I did at the beginning of last year, I think that's I, th- I think that's what hurts the most for a creative person, when they lose that ability. And if you've never had the opportunity to create, you
It's a
try it.
frustrating. I can just tell from my own experience. I try. I always had a more of a logical, scientific person with a creative streak, and I never had the opportunity to basically explore my creativity. Now, what I did, the mistake I made was I tried to do it through work. So I tried to do it through database design. So I was creating the front end, thinking about the user experience and, okay, if I make this bit shiny and this button, and then somebody's not having to do these 10 steps, and that's where I poured my heart and soul. But it made me a lot of enemies because a lot of people in that type of environment are not creative, and
Right.
they don't understand you. They don't understand your motivation, and they're thinking through politics, office politics, and they're just trying to climb up the ladder, or they're trying to make me look bad. And the one that always gets me is they're trying to take my job, even when you're not even remotely heading their direction. Your progression doesn't mean that you're stepping over the top of them because you're going somewhere completely different. But that led to a lot of frustration in my life, and I've been podcasting for over 10 years now, I think, just in different formats. But when I discovered it, and then when I started picking up pen and paper myself, just having that ability, didn't matter whether nobody watches us or nobody buys my books, it doesn't matter. It's that excitement of, I've got an idea, I'm putting something together, and you're invested in something for a time.
Yes.
And I want people to understand the joy of that. And I want anyone that might be feeling nervous or thinking it's impossible, it definitely isn't. You've got an old fat bloke here sitting on YouTube's, talking away, and his computer's breaking down and disconnecting, but I'm still doing it and I'm still happy. I'm not sitting here crying in a puddle of tears because it's not a pristine, perfect studio level performance. You know what I mean? That's not
Absolutely.
what it's about. We're having fun.
Absolutely. And this is the creating process. What we're doing right now is creating this podcast, for the people to listen to later on. This is the fun part. This is the part where, we discuss things, and this has been a great discussion so far. And I feel like that this is the creative part. This is the aspect that is so enjoyable. And in your case, being the podcast, this is what you want. You want to enjoy it, and I've enjoyed this, and I think I believe you have as well.
Absolutely, we're actually normally these things are meant to last an hour, but we're an hour and a half now. So not even just check the clock there. When you don't even see time go past, that's when you're in the zone.
Yes, absolutely, and that's where we're at. Where we're at is this is the creative process, and for you, the podcast is the creative process. When you put it on, when you do all the fancy stuff, afterwards, when you put up links and all that stuff, that's exciting. But this is the really exciting.
This goes out live, so every bump and lump has went out live into the internet, so there's no hiding from it. That bit's exactly. That was all the bit at the start, when I created because you don't see it your end, but when we created all the backdrop and the title and the theme, and that was all the graft. And the frustrating part in trying to set this up in a user friendly way, because before I've used Skype a lot, but it's not a user friendly device, and a lot of people don't use it anymore.
Nope. Skype, I don't like Skype.
No, it's
never liked Skype.
That's why it's kind of went to the way of the dogs. Now, my co-host and I still use it because we can frame things differently and all, so you kind of get a bit of a different look when it goes out there. But it's on its way out because it's not user friendly. It's not in. When something becomes a hassle to use, then you don't enjoy it.
That's absolutely. And
even
sounds like we're enjoying.
Do you remember CreateSpace before it became Amazon Kindle Publishing Direct?
Let's say that again.
Do you remember CreateSpace?
Oh yes. I love CreateSpace.
That was not when it came to using images or formatting, that was not friendly.
No, it was not friendly. If you when the first two times I used CreateSpace, it was horrible because I was trying to create the books. The book. Well, I'd already had
10 years plus ago. Do you know what I mean? That's how I got into this accidentally by helping somebody else out because, like I said, I worked with database design. I worked in sort of admin. I'm an analyst by trade. So I had somebody come and help me. You know about computers, don't you? Because when you know a little bit, apparently you know everything. But it was like, about computers. I can't understand this platform, and I'm looking at it, scratching my head, going, "What the hell? why is this not lining up? And oh, it was
Yeah, when Create Space first, when they first started putting that, it was a nightmare. And of course, now that Create Space is essentially Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing or KDP,
mhm.
it's the same setup, it's the same system. It's just a little easier to use, a little more expensive too. So, but yeah, Create Space when they first started sucked, just sucked.
Yeah, and that could just be enough to put somebody off, you know. And back to not being afraid to be available to go, look, I've been through this and give you a hand. And back to what you mentioned about the kindness, that can make a heck of a difference between having no creators and 100.
Yes,
And it's back to
yes. I
that
mean, because
mindset.
look, if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, can you help me?" They're not coming to you for you to do it. They want help. Legitimate people who want help, they're going to listen to you. They're going to be attentive and say, "How do I do this? Can you show me? Can you walk me through?" And then they're going to be appreciative. And some of the best things that I've ever done, is when I've helped somebody. Even if it's taken like 15 hours of my time, and I've helped somebody, and they're like, "Oh, I get it now. I understand now." Man, that's a reward in and of itself. You know, so kindness goes a long way.
And it's funny because we deal with in the horror genre, we deal with the darkest, gnarliest aspects of human life. And have yet to meet the person that doesn't want to be a decent human being. It's just so funny. It's been a coin flip. It's I think maybe by exploring the darkness that you appreciate. Maybe I'll not be a complete twat.
Yes,
I'll not jump on somebody's head for no reason. Don't get me wrong. Kindness does not equate weakness. I think that's a bit of a mantra that's people
yeah.
think. If you're kind, you're weak. I don't
I
believe so.
believe if I believe if you're kind, you're strong, because it takes a big person to be kind to somebody who's a jerk. It takes a big person not to respond to somebody that treats them bad in a negative way. It takes a strong person to do that. So kindness is definitely not a weakness. It is I feel like it's a strength.
But the other thing is as well. Horror fans have seen at least 1,000 ways to dissect and hide the bodies. That's not the sort of person you want to mess with.
No, you don't. Funny thing is, my daughter is not a horror fan, but she watches all of the true life crime shows, and we're not talking about the CSIs and stuff like that. We're talking about the real true life crime shows. And she joked one time about a boyfriend. She goes, "They'll never find him." And, and I'm like, and she was like 16 at the time, and I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Oh, I know how to hide a body." I was like, "Okay, you're now really starting to scare me," you know. But she, and then of course she was joking, but there's some seriousness to that.
Yeah, there's a jack and a joke because actually you literally do. That's Facebook have really started clamping down on true crime.
Oh, say it again.
Facebook have really started clamping down on true crime. So they don't like you
Yeah,
talking about it. They don't like groups dedicated. They say it's glorifying um, the activity, but you could say that about horror and as a whole, saying it's glorifying, X. But I don't
yeah,
think it is. And talking
I don't
to
think it is. I don't think horror is glorifying. Horror is such a unique genre, and if you can, if people knock it so quick because they just think, again, it's about gore and it's about monsters and things, but they don't take the chance to read it or watch it, and so it gets knocked down a lot, and it gets like frowned upon in the literary circles, and you know it's got such a negative stigma. But I'm sitting here going, have you not read a romance book? Have you not? read that most of these romance books are talking about cheating on their spouses because and steamy sex, and I said, what was that? It's the highest selling genre in the world.
One of the most horrific romance series I ever read was Flowers in the Attic.
Oh yes, yes. BC
Virginia
Andrews.
Andrews, that
Yeah.
7 book series. I actually inherited them from my mum. My mum had them, and God, they're gone now. But the covers, even the way they did the cover and the front one opened up, it was like windows, and you opened up and you saw the family. That was dark, and the thing is, that was under romance.
Yes. Yes.
That was a
And
dark series.
those are some disturbing books. Yes. There's a book, The Wasp Factory by Ian Banks.
I've heard
Mag
of Ian Banks.
oh,
Is he not a thriller writer?
he was.
Crime. He's a detective.
Not crime, no. Well, the book I read wasn't. He may be, but The Wasp Factory is so different. It's so different, and all throughout the book, he's telling you the main character is telling you all these things, and he's just dropping these tiny little hints that you don't know are hints. And then you get to the end, and you're like, "What the just happened?" And you're like, "Holy cow! He mentioned this here," and you don't get it. It was like the most mind blowing ending of any book I've ever read. But some of the content of the book could be considered frowned upon because of what he talks about, because there is abuse in there, and there's some what some people would say is unnecessary violence, but when you get to the end of the book, it's like, oh crap, no, this is actually very important information that he's put in here, and brilliant book. But it's not a horror story, and it's more of a thriller type story, and one of the by far, and I mentioned earlier, I'm a huge Stephen King fan.
Mm-hmm.
By far, the best book I've ever read in my life is The Wasp Factory. So, just because of where it took me and the rabbit hole it took me down, and then when I came out of the rabbit hole, I was like, "What the hell did I just read?" It was
Fantastic.
so awesome.
I'll have to definitely add that to the list.
Yeah. So that's, and the problem here is, and that's not considered a horror story, but it was very much a horror story, and our the horror genre just gets such a negative feedback by people who don't read it, or especially the literary community, who's like, they turn their nose up to horror. But if you actually read a literary book, you'll realize that most literary books are horrific. Of
It's like
Mice and
classical
Men,
music.
fabulous book.
It's most classical music is an intellectual exercise. That's why they don't have song titles. They're arpeggios in D minor. They're intellectual pieces, so that attracts that crowd. But every so often, you get a creative piece which changes the world.
I can see that.
Literary sort of groups, and that seems to be more. It's more navel gazing, intellectual types. And I have no time for snobbery. I'm just a down to earth person. I just do what I do. I've no time for sticking my nose up or looking down at people,
Right.
because you don't know where you're going to be from one day to the next.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
what makes you the expert? You can be knowledgeable, you can be a fail, but you're not the be all and the end all. That's why we need more creators, not less, and we need
Right.
less of this infighting. That's another thing I'm trying to bring across with this series: is stop the infighting. We're too small to
Yeah.
be doing that.
I can agree with that. I can agree. Absolutely.
Well, Jeff, I've kept you from your family's probably like, come in yet? Is he gonna? Are we ever gonna see him again? I know you can't.
They know I talk.
Yeah.
They know I got a big mouth. This thing never shuts up.
Here,
So they
I'm as
know.
bad when I get into it. I mean, probably the worst combination here. This could end up being a 3 hour podcast, but if you're up for it, we'll definitely do this again.
Absolutely. I'd
Love to.
definitely be up for it.
Just to wrap up then, what projects do you have currently on the go? What can people expect to see from you in the coming months or year?
Well, I just about 2 weeks ago or so signed a contract with Black Rose Writing for my short story collection, The Color of Sorrows. It's slated to come out in February of 2023. I'm really excited about it. Everything that I've seen about Black Rose writing, the authors, the editor who turned me on to this, the people I've dealt with, they're fabulous. It's been a great
I want to
experience
get
so
some
far.
publishers on this show,
Uh,
especially indie
maybe I could,
publishers. That's another aspect. I've got some other creators coming as well, so I'm not just this isn't just authors. You know, I mean that's why it's just
right.
a generic horrific chats. If you can, if somebody wants to come on from them, have a chat with me, and it'd be good to see the other side of what are publishers looking for this day and age. How do independent publishers help? I've had a wee bit of an insight, but it'd be nice to actually get it from the horse's mouth and have a conversation along those lines. So please let them
Yeah,
know here.
I will. I will. I got a couple of emails I got to send. Um, Absolutely, I'll put that in there. And I'll make sure and put your podcast name and your name in there and say, hey, look, feel free to contact him because, dude, this has been awesome.
I'm
And
glad I've enjoyed it too. It's been a fantastic chat. This is what I want to achieve. It's not about cookie cutter questions and going over the old tropes. It's let people get to know you. That's how you find out
absolutely,
what someone's about, and then that makes your writing and your creation more interesting because at least you know the motivation and the heart behind it. That just gets people invested as well, and that's what I want to achieve here. Give them a chance. So I guess we'll wrap it up here before we go into like because I just know we could go on. I feel it.
we could go on.
We probably will after the stream ends, but like we got full guns before it even started. Near had to go.
Yeah,
Oh right, we're live now. Better get ready to start.
yeah,
Thanks,
we
Jeff, for
probably do
turning
need to
up.
wrap it up before we get kicked off again.
Yeah, as well, because I don't know what the hell Zoom's playing at. I'm going to have to look at that. Thanks everyone tuning in. Make sure you check out Jeff and his work. All the links are in the description. And until next time, keep it creepy, keep it horrific.
Man, hey, Colin, I appreciate it, and everybody, y'all have a great day and a great night.